This is a short video about the factor theorem. So we've already talked about the remainder theorem. And this will also give me another opportunity to do some synthetic division with you. So let's just pretend you don't know what the factor theorem is, and maybe you really don't. So I just want to do this division problem. 2x squared plus 3x minus 1 divided by x minus 1. We'll set it up the usual way with synthetic division, which looks like this here, where, again, that 1, that's your c. 1 is c there, and then we'll just put these coefficients right here, and notice, I don't need any placeholder zeros because I get x squared, x, and then constant. I don't skip any powers of x. All right, so how does synthetic division work? Remember, we drop this down, that's 2, then we multiply, I get 2, and I'd add those things there, I get 5, and I just play the same game. I multiply the 1 and the 5, put a 5 there, and when I add those, I get 4. So at this point, what does this say? Remember, this is your quotient. How you should read that is this is your constant, and this is what's on x now. So 2x plus 5 is how you should read that. And this is your remainder. Again, what always helped me is I always start reading from right to left. I know the farthest right is the remainder, and then I kind of count up the power of x's that I get. So this would be no power of x, and the next would be 1 power of x. So to recap, what have we got here? Let's use colors here. We'll just say the quotient is 2x plus 5, and the remainder is 4. And I want to remind you, what's another way that I can write this? I can write this as 2x squared plus 3x minus 1, kind of the big polynomial. What did I divide? That's equal to, well, what did I divide by? The quotient, or I'm sorry, the divisor, goodness, lots of D words. X minus 1 times your quotient, though, 2x plus 5, plus the remainder of 4. Now, how do I want to look at this? What I want to try to look at this now as, I'm trying to say that this polynomial on the left, it almost factors like this, but I'm off by a little bit. I'm off by 4. And I want to think about the following then. What would happen if there was nothing there? Well, then that would mean that you factored, right? If there's no remainder, then that means you've successfully factored that polynomial. And what that thought is called the factor theorem. So to kind of recap what's going on here, the factor theorem says if you've got a polynomial f and c is any real number, if x minus c is a factor of your polynomial f, then that means when you divide, the remainder should be 0. And you could say that backwards too. If f of x divided by x minus c has remainder 0, then you can conclude that x minus c has to be a factor of your polynomial. So let's just do an example where we're looking at maybe just what does this say? What does this guarantee me? So if we look at this example, we're going to do x squared minus x minus 6 divided by x minus 3. So we'll play our usual game. We'll use synthetic division because it's a little bit faster. We'll put 3 there. We'll put a 1, a minus 1, and a minus 6 for your coefficients on what are you dividing into. And when we play the game, 1 comes down. When I multiply the 3 and the 1, I would add that here, and I get 2. And when I multiply the 3 and the 2, I get a 6. And hey, look at that, you get a 0. Now what do you know? You know that that piece is the remainder right there, right? And what are you left with? You're left with, that's the same thing as x plus 2. That's your quotient. So what did we just say if I put this stuff all together? We just said, this says that x squared minus x minus 6 is equal to, what'd you divide by? X minus 3. What'd you get when you divided? I got x plus 2 right there, that's my quotient, plus the remainder of 0. I just wrote that for emphasis. I don't really need to write it. What's my point? When the remainder is 0, that says that you factored that polynomial. That's one way to look at, or maybe that's one piece of what the remainder theorem is trying to say. So the remainder theorem tells us then, so x plus 2 is a factor, or I guess maybe I should say, that's not wrong, but what did I use here? This says, what did I divide by? X minus 3. So x minus 3 is a factor of your polynomial f, which I'm calling x squared minus x minus 6, because the remainder is 0. Now how we're going to use that pretty soon is we're going to use synthetic division as a check, as doing some guessing and checking as to, here's this big polynomial, could I maybe factor this a little bit at a time? And that's, again, what we're going to be doing in some future lessons.